One of the major criticisms against free grace theology, and one that was recently published by a well-known author, is that when we teach that the only condition of salvation is to believe in Jesus for it, we're out of step with the Reformation. When we say we're saved by faith apart from all works, the Reformers didn't quite agree with that, and therefore we're wrong. And so the question is, what really matters? Does consensus matter, or does just the Bible matter?
That's a great question, Sean. And the key point to keep in mind here is whose consensus. For example, the author you're talking about is talking about Reformation consensus. But as we all know, there are many more Roman Catholics, and have been many more Roman Catholics than there have been Protestants. So what about a Catholic consensus? Or what about Orthodox? I grew up on my mother's side, Eastern Orthodox. There are many, many, many Eastern Orthodox people. What about their consensus? Or, the cult groups, they have their own consensus. The problem with the consensus is the consensus assumes that correct belief is centered in what the majority of people believe. And yet Jesus says the way is narrow that lead to life, and few find it. Matthew 7:13 and 14. So that would make us think that we don't go with the consensus, we go with the scriptures.
Mm-hmm. And as comforting as it is, and I know how scary it can be to stand out from a crowd and to believe something different from everyone else, that can be scary, and there's comfort in kind of just going with the herd and just believing what everyone else believes. But like Bob was saying, you've got to realize every group in history is small compared to the sum total of humanity. So even if there are, let's say, 10 million people in your denomination, there are still hundreds of millions of people who disagree with you. So however comforting it may be to be belong to your small group, in the grand scheme of things, you're still a minority. So don't let this desire for comfort blind you from just siding with what the Bible says. That's what we in the Free Grace Movement have tried to do. We're Biblicists. We respect tradition, but our ultimate authority is the Bible.
Right, and the Apostle Paul was real clear in Ephesians 2:8 and 9 that it's by grace you've been saved through faith, and that not of yourselves, it's the gift of God, not of works, lest anyone should boast. There is no ground for saying, well, wait a minute, you're justified by faith alone, but the faith that justifies is never alone. If you do that, you've just contradicted Ephesians 2:8 and 9 or John 6:28 and 29, where Jesus says, look, if you want to do the work of God, believe in him whom he sent. That's the only kind of action we can do that will lead to us being born again.
When Jesus warned us against the traditions of men, what he was warning about was consensus theology.